On a larger level, changes are taking place. We're changing, we're continuing to evolve. And one of the key areas of that change is within the energy system. And we're actually creating a more specific structuring of how the energy body is formed. So as that's taking place and as that's interacting with our physical bodies, it's influencing what happens within our physical body. And one of the areas that it influences is the hormonal system. So the hormonal system is also evolving to be compatible. It's like a new software or a new program that something has to change in order to be compatible with that higher function. So a lot of what's taking place in our social sphere right now in regards to gender, and sometimes confusion, angst, friction, those things are being instigated by these changes that are taking place. And to some degree, the fact that people aren't aware that underneath this topic, underneath these feelings, underneath the impulse to express in different ways, is this force of evolution and how it's influencing one of the most powerful information systems within our body, which is the hormonal system. Right now, it's a new territory, so there's not a clear understanding of how it's working. And so people can be born into a female body, but really have a strong urge to express themselves as a male, or vice versa. And the approaches that people are taking in order to do that, those are possibilities. But then within the light body activation and the light body information, if those impulses are there, they can be harmonized and expressed in ways that are not known to this point, and can make that experience more harmonized, more peaceful, with less angst, with less friction. One, someone can identify that that's what's happening within them, and then have tools as to how to work with that. There's ways that we identify parts of the energy system and work with them. And we could say those are the tools, like how to work with the chakras, how to work with the meridians, how to work with the Kundalini channels, how to work with what we call the outer body membranes. All these are components of a system that you can call the energy system. They work synergistically, and they're developing synergistically to bring human beings, Homo sapiens, into another phase of evolution, into another dimension of being. As an example, as the forces of change affect our hormones at the same time are being influenced by the chakras, specifically chakras, because each chakra is connected with an endocrine gland. And the endocrine glands, that's where the hormones are produced. So we can regulate, harmonize, balance hormonal production, and also understand how hormonal production is going on in our unique system in order to, first of all, be empathetic with ourselves. And once we can experience that, then it can become realistic and even unique in terms of how we want to go about our expression of gender and sexuality. And so these are the things that we'll discuss in detail in the class, talk about the information that's coming through from the light body work, and also look at practices and different processes that we can do in order to harmonize what sometimes can be conflicting forces within ourselves and within the external environment. The approach to harmonizing this conflict within a person that's having that conflict, well, one is to portray themselves as, let's say, the opposite sex, or to undergo like a hormone therapy so that they become looking more like the opposite sex. Or something that's more permanent is to create actual physical change through surgery. So I wouldn't judge any of those things as right or wrong. These are individual choices that people make, and I would think that people making those choices, that the more permanent they become, the more reflection they do in terms of what they really want. However, within the light body work, it's getting more connected to those forces and how they're working inside, and actually using them in the way that they're working inside to discover something unique, a unique possibility in how to express those changes or what appear to be conflicts, which, if understood and experienced, connected to through the consciousness, are not conflicts at all. They're uniquenesses that can be explored and enjoyed, and can be offering a state of fulfillment, satisfaction. There's different levels to it. It's not only for someone that is under the influence of changing forces that are creating conflict in relation to what are seen as normal paradigms. Someone that is female, that is perfectly fine with expressing as a female, can also use the connection to the hormonal system through the chakras as a way to stay in balance, as a way to stay in harmony with their own system. Chakra balance creates hormonal balance. Through the function of the chakra and its relationship with the hormones, we can also stimulate the hormones that produce sensations of happiness, sensation of the feeling of what people would refer to as love. Certain hormones are connected to those feelings. Euphoria, joy, those are hormonal oriented feelings. Or at least we can say that hormones are intimately related to those feelings. So through learning how to use our chakra system, our kundalini fields, we can bring the attention to the production of those type of hormones and those type of energies, and produce those type of states. One of the consistent results of working with the light body tools is a feeling of peacefulness, serenity, and an openness, this so-called feeling of love. But I would say that love is not only like a nebulous term, like being in love, but love is the feeling of empowerment, the feeling of acceptance, the feeling of embracing. So I think that those dimensions of that word love are really important, and they are a consistent result of doing light body work. So if people do light body work as it's presented till now, because I haven't talked a lot about the hormonal component of it, they will consistently feel those sensations. But now understanding the role and the chemistry of the hormones can be extremely useful. So it's meant to address the gender and sexual response across the spectrum of different experiences that people have relating to it. The hormonal system is evolving, and it's also becoming liberated in a sense. Whereas the influence of the linear mind, stress, society, a lifestyle that is not creating like a healthy body, the hormones are either going to become deficient or they're going to become locked, because they should have a flexibility, chemically have a flexibility to transmute. It's like a vertebrae. If it moves to one side and it gets stuck there, it starts to create problems. It should have a flexibility to move within a range. And within our bodies, we have, let's say, as an example, male and female hormones. You know, whether you're man or woman, there's a moment to express the feminine part of your nature or the masculine part of your nature. That doesn't have to be necessarily connected to the sex act, but it has to do with the quality of how we're expressing ourselves in certain situations at a certain point in time. And so that flexibility to gravitate to the more feminine part of our nature or the more masculine part of our nature gives us a flexibility. And the flexibility underlying that within our hormonal system is part of that. If we're less like locked in, our hormonal system becomes locked up in a certain way, then we don't have that flexibility. If people are thinking a certain way, that can also cause an excess or deficiency within the hormonal production. The hormones affect our perception in mind, and our minds affect our hormones and how they act within our system. So the hormonal system is changing to accommodate larger scale changes that are happening within our mind and body. And when I say that, I mean this system, organized system of energy that has these components that we work with: chakras, kundalini channels, meridians, and an outer body or a bioplasmic field that functions like a membrane. I think an important part of the sexual gender story is understanding the orgasm, because a lot of attention has been put to the orgasm. And it also has a very narrow range of understanding in terms of what it is. The orgasm, as society promotes it, can be destructive. It can be energy depleting. And so there's different levels. There's 5 different levels of orgasm that are possible to experience. We have a heart level orgasm. We have a crown soul star level orgasm. And we have an orgasm that takes place through interaction and connection to the things that are going on around us. And learning how to identify that and then participate in it can create a more balanced experience of what's called orgasm. So in this light body classes related to sexuality and gender, processes, practices to develop those other types of orgasm and the awareness of how they take place are going to be a part of that light body experience. I think they're really important because it brings like a whole different dimension to what you're experiencing day to day in the life. Those other types of orgasm not only can be as intense as the only orgasm that people are usually aware of, but they can eventually supersede that level, the one that people focus on, which is the genital orgasm. It can not only supersede that, but it can also be far more intense than that type of orgasm. And also, that genital orgasm is the one that can oftentimes be energy depleting. And the way that it's presented socially and the way that it's kind of insidiously fused into like advertising, into images of our culture, can be creating a lot of stress and a lot of false expectations. And so it can be a really important awakening to understand that there is a more powerful orgasm, and that orgasm or those levels of orgasm can be much greater, much more powerful, and actually creating the opposite effect, creating an effect that's empowering, that's supporting awakening, and also has the same kind of intensity to it. I think that this class is going to be quite an adventure. It's going to be a very important addition to the light body work that we've done till now. Light body work that's been to awaken consciousness, to discover higher forms of what we call entertainment, to discover ways to interact on a energetic, telepathic level. All these things have been part of the light body class to prepare ourselves for the birth into a whole other dimension of existence, and to understand like this very primal force of the sexuality and gender is a kind of a next step, an unfolding of our understanding. And I think that it's appropriate that we have studied all these other ideas first and done these other practices first, because this one is so powerful. And I think that you need to be prepared in the way that we've been going through this progression of development to this point, to really step in to conscious understanding, but also the responsible understanding of this kind of material. I think that the course can be taken by someone that has the interest, and they have to understand that there are materials that are foundational to this. And so if they're in the course, if they're involved in the course, and there are things that they don't understand, that they realize that they were going to have to go back and catch up on some of the essentials. The work that we do with the cranial system, the work that we do with chakras, the awareness of sensations that come from connecting the mind with the body, the mind with the energy system. These are all important awarenesses and developments that we've worked for to this point, and they will certainly become, part of the interactive work that we do with the sexual energy and the understanding of evolving gender. So if you're interested in this kind of topic, and it would be surprising to me if someone was not interested, if you're interested in the possibility of expanding, harmonizing that experience within your life system, within your relationships, within your relationship with yourself or others, then I think that it's something that's more than worth exploring.